Okay, yeah, I do think I've got it working. Cool. Just give me 1 second. I'm gonna let everyone know that we're doing this. Sweet. Just give me a second. Just a minute. I need to, like, let everyone know that we're here. Posting to Facebook. Yeah. And Twitter. Alright. Hey everybody, how's it going? Hey. Yeah. Everyone can hear me, right? We're good? Everyone let me know if you can hear me. If there are any issues, I need to know about it, like, right away. Huh. Maybe I have the delay on for too long. Oh gosh. Okay. Sorry, I'm always surprised when there are so many things at once. All right, yeah, everyone says I'm good. All right, cool. So, all right, essentially, what we're doing here is I made some videos a while ago about Darkseid, and I've gotten a lot of questions about them. And frankly, I feel like I've talked enough about the character by this point. I don't think I have another Darkseid video in me, and all of the questions I get are sort of these miscellaneous things that I don't think could fit into a single video in the first place. So I thought a while ago it'd be nice if I could just get everyone together and do a quick Q&A and answer some stuff and whatever else anyone has to say. But then I ended up releasing the Galactus video first, and I just decided, maybe people have questions about Galactus too, so this video is really supposed to be about solving both of those mysteries. Let me know what you've got, and I think this is mostly going to take place in the form of a general Q&A, if everyone's okay with that. I know that seems like that's all I ever do, but, well, I mean, I don't know, maybe one day we'll get on here and I'll play a video game or something, but that's really all I know how to do right now. Alright, so, it looks like we're off. Sweet. Okay, I'm gonna see what I can find, and yeah, just type it in the chat. Alright, let's see what we've got here. Am I wearing lipstick? No. Alright. Why didn't I cover Lifebringer Galactus? I think there was just a lack of time in the schedule. I don't like making these 45-minute long monstrosities because I feel like nobody watches them, and if nobody watches them, what's even the point of making it? Not that I've done a great deal of those in the past, but YouTube doesn't tend to recommend them, and the longer my videos get, I've analyzed the data and I can just about tell where attention starts to drip off. I really only had time to talk about base regular Galactus. Maybe someday in the future I'll do a video on Lifebringer, but it was really kind of just a phase, and I thought it was more important that we deal with the original character, and I talk about his role in the universe and his importance and what he's capable of doing. So that's why you didn't see Lifebringer Galactus. I think there's so much to cover there, it would warrant its own video. Alright, we've got a few super chats. Darkside or Thanos, who would win? These questions are always complicated because it depends exactly what factors you're talking about. Just like an emanation of Darkseid versus Thanos, I do think Darkseid has the edge on that. If you're talking about Thanos with the Infinity Gauntlet versus Darkseid's true completed form, that's significantly more complicated. And I've looked into it, and hold on, give me just a... The problem is the Infinity Gauntlet is sometimes treated a little bit inconsistently. But if we're talking about the Infinity Gauntlet at its absolute peak, I do think it could probably take him. But the Infinity Gauntlet only ever works inside of its home universe, which Darkseid's true form can't actually enter. So that shouldn't I don't think that it's really ever a battle that is capable of happening, you know, because of the range limitations. It's much more likely. I know people. I know Death Battle did a thing on this a while ago, and I think they more or less got it right. It's much more likely that Darkseid would manipulate Thanos into leaving his universe, because Darkseid is all about manipulation, and Thanos is all about shooting himself in the foot at the last second. So that seems like the most reasonable outcome to me. I think Darkseid would probably trick Thanos into leaving and then off him. All right. I'm sorry if I don't do the super chat thing right. I'm really trying. I'm not an expert. Some guy just says, "I love you." Thanks. I make my content to entertain people, so I'm really glad that you've enjoyed it. A question about Darkseid. Do I agree with the Death Battle match? Yeah, I sort of ended up answering that one by accident. I think that Death Battle more or less got it right on the money. There are some details there that were a little bit off. Like, for example, they said Darkseid uses avatars to interact with the regular populace. That's actually a that's a misnomer. I'm sorry, did I say Galactus? Sorry, they said Darkseid uses avatars to interact with the regular universe, and that's actually a misnomer. Darkseid does have avatars, but avatars are a different thing from emanations. The Darkseids that you usually see that are in each individual universe, those are emanations of the true Darkseid that exists in the realm of forms, like the Abstracta world. Avatars are actually these, like, sort of like Doombots, these sort of clones that Darkseid's emanations are capable of creating, that run errands for him so he can be in more than one place at once. And it's often used as a way to explain away how Darkseid lost in a fight against someone he shouldn't have lost to, or why his power fluctuates so much. It's just a writer's get-out-of-jail-free card. Avatars do exist, but what Death Battle was trying to talk about in that moment was actually emanations, and they used the wrong terminology there. Greetings from Germany. Hey, thanks. I love it when I get to hear some stuff from, you know, people from other countries. It's always amazing to think about how far the show reaches and how many people watch the Imaginary Axis. I never expected it to go over this well. Darkseid versus Galactus. Who wins? Darkseid's emanation would lose. I'm not aware of any Darkseid emanation that could defeat Galactus when he's fully fed. But if we're talking about true form Darkseid, the Darkseid that sort of sits outside of time and space and on top of like a billion dimensions, he would absolutely annihilate Galactus, because from his perspective, Galactus doesn't even really exist. So even the gods have their gods, I suppose. Let's see. And sorry, I will get to non-super chats, but I really won't do all the super chats because I feel like people paid money to have them submitted. So, you know, it's like, well, I don't want to ruin it. How come Orion's fall didn't collapse the multiverse? Because Orion never properly manifested in the multiverse the way that Darkseid did. Darkseid ended up concentrating his Darkseid ended up incarnating into who is it? Dan Turpin, which gave him an actual presence on the multiverse he was falling on top of. And if you read the comics, that's the moment when the sky cracks open and the entire multiverse starts collapsing into a singularity. Darkseid exists in a place where he is qualitatively superior to everything that exists in our world, because he's an abstracta. He's infinitely more powerful than anything in our lower string theory dimensions, and he doesn't really interact with them in the same way that you would when you like fell on top of a cardboard box, for instance. He has it was the calculation of the fall. Sorry if that seems a little wonky. Oh yeah, also, when Orion fell, all of his emanations sort of fell in different realities, and it was a very clever way of Grant Morrison writing off why we'd seen Orion die so many weirdly different ways. In reality, it was because DC had a bunch of different people writing them, and they wrote like 3 different ways of... They wrote like 3 different Orion death stories that none of them added up together, so Grant Morrison kind of was like, well, I'm doing the emanation thing anyway, and he draped a blanket over it all, saying that's because he fell in the 4th world. Oh, the intro? Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I guess I screwed it up. Hello, I'm Tyler. This is an Imaginary Livestream, and thanks for joining us today. I guess I was so nervous that I just forgot to say it. So, let the questions roll. Who's truly the one above all in DC/Marvel? Both companies have omnipotent characters, or characters that I'm pretty positive are, I think we can all reasonably assume are attempts at portraying omnipotence. There's some stuff about the one above all versus the above all others, and I don't want to get into that right now because I have some, I might have some content coming up based on that, but I would say that ultimately if you're trying to compare them, they do equal out in the end because they're both include attempted portrayals of omnipotence, and when you have people really trying to say this thing is all-powerful, it can't match itself. It's like, I guess if I wanted to put it in really simple terms, those two entities would turn out to actually be the same entity if they ever met. So there's not really a comparison to be had. Yo, what's up? Long time no see. Hi, Guy Jackson. Nice to see you too. I'm doing well, for the most part. Things are going alright over here, and I'm hoping to get some new content out to you guys very soon. I know I say that a lot, but I'm really hoping that, you know, we're going to have a new era of videos coming out, and I think you'll really enjoy them. When's your next upload? Love your videos. Thank you so much for the compliments. It really means a lot to me. I don't want to say exactly when my next upload is right now because I am terrified of promising something and then messing it up. It's clear that I like to have everything, you know, sitting very precisely in a row. But I'll say this, if the next video comes out when I expect it to, I will probably announce when the video after that's going to come out, because that will be good evidence that I've got everything in order, and I'll feel safe enough to make future announcements about when things are coming out. Alright, hold on. Trying to find a lot more of these. Which one did I... Okay. Alright. Crap. Give me 1 second. My computer's freezing on me here. Okay, I don't think I missed anyone. If I did, let me know. But this next guy says, "Hey Tyler, I just want to say you've been the biggest inspiration to me in getting me into science. I never would have considered it without you. Love you." Thanks. That really means a lot to me. Like, legit, because part of the mindset behind starting the Imaginary Axis was I thought just society in general, and certainly the education system, is doing a terrible job of making these very interesting things sound interesting. And I wanted to sort of speak the language of other nerds like me who might really enjoy it and, you know, find a passion for science and learning and education. So that means a lot to me. I really appreciate the compliments. What's your interpretation of the God paradox? Could an omnipotent being limit its own power, or make a rock too heavy to lift? Yeah, this is actually a really... the omnipotence paradox has not really been... I don't think it's been really seriously considered by, like, high... I mean, I'm sure it's still taught and things like that, but the omnipotence paradox actually has quite a few answers to it. So, like, let's take it from the form of, could God create a rock too heavy for him to lift? There are two basic interpretations to this. One is the scholarly answer, and one is the absolutist answer. The scholarly answer claims that God cannot make a rock too heavy for himself to lift. And the reason is because the sentence itself is nonsense. You have to look into the philosophy behind the words you're stringing together there. Just because you've put a bunch of words together in a sentence that you recognize does not mean you've formed a coherent thought. This is a difficult thing for me to... Well, let me think for a minute about how to phrase this. For example, you could ask, can God book, library, shelf, bathtub, hippo, ouch, my nose? That's nonsense. All I've done is I've put a bunch of words that you recognized in a sentence and put can God at the front of it. Asking, can something that can do anything make itself capable of not doing something is in and of itself a paradox. So the scholarly view, and I'm probably butchering the heck out of the explanation. I really should have. I really should have tried to be more eloquent about it. The scholarly view is that the question itself is you're asking something that doesn't exist, and so the answer is no. The absolutist view says that God can create a rock too heavy for himself to lift. And then you'd be like, oh, well, that means that he's not omnipotent because he can't lift the rock. No, he can still lift the rock. God can lift rocks too heavy for him to lift because he's God. He can do anything. That's how omnipotence works in the absolutist view. The absolutist view says that even two contradictory things are capable of comprising the same set, sort of. Because omnipotence is sort of anything goes. But yeah, the omnipotence paradox I don't think has been seriously used in a very long time, because it's there have been working answers to it for quite a while. Personally, I favor the scholarly view between the two. All right. I'm sorry if I missed some of these. I'm really trying. Who would win between Darkside and the Endless? The Endless, no question asked. The Endless are so much more powerful than Darkside. They are the equivalent of what Darkside is to us, to him. The Endless are the gods above gods. There are very few things in in all of creation that can compete with them. Sentry versus Superman. Who would win? I don't want to do a lot of versus questions when the characters are in the same ballpark. You see me answering things like the Endless versus Darkseid, or these various Darkseid forms versus Thanos, but that's generally because once you do some really deep digging into it, one very definitively wins. I don't like answering questions like Superman versus the Hulk, or Superman versus Sentry, or any of these characters who people generally, it's a heated topic because they're sort of different interpretations will place them around the same power level. Because I feel it's not my place to really dictate to everybody how you're supposed to interpret a hypothetical match that isn't ever going to happen. If they're in the same company, I guess we can talk, because they've probably actually fought each other, and we can actually look at the instances that it's occurred. But I feel it's somewhat limiting. If you're asking me something like Aunt May versus Galactus, I can tell you Galactus is going to win. But we're doing things like Sentry and Superman. It's not something I'd really like to take part of. What I've always recommended when people ask me these things is, maybe one day I'll make a video on Sentry, maybe one day I'll make a video on Superman. What you should really do is take both of those explanations and compare them to each other. See what you think based on my personal analysis between the two. But I don't think I'm ever going to actually do a video comparing both. Sorry if I seem rambly. I'm very nervous. I don't do improv very well. Greetings from Spain. There is an anime character that you want to do... Oh, is there an anime character you want to do in the future? By the way, your work is great, and I'm glad you're still doing it. Well, thank you so much. It means a lot to me. Thanks, everyone out there in Spain, for supporting. Is there an anime character I want to do? I have a thing where I think I'd really like to do some My Hero Academia at some point. but I don't know if it's a good time. I think I kind of missed it. I think I sort of missed the peak of the popularity because there were some things going on in real life, and I wasn't producing a ton of videos at the time. And it's a shame because I've been watching My Hero Academia, and I've really thought, this is perfect for the imaginary axis, but I'm not sure if a lot of people would watch it, and part of my policy is I don't really like to make videos unless I think it's going to garner an audience somewhere, because then, like, what's the point? If no one's watching it, then why did you work on it? Where does Darkseid fall in DC's hierarchy of power? Who do you think can be the Marquise of Death? Darkseid is... I don't think I fully understand the question. On the hierarchy of power, like, he's very powerful, if that's what you're getting at. Any of the abstract gods, these gods that are responsible for the literal concepts that pervade the many dimensions in the physical universe, they're all immensely powerful. Literally infinitely more powerful than infinitely more powerful than infinitely more powerful, going up by a lot. They are really strong. But even they are gnats compared to people like the Endless or Lucifer Morningstar. Lucifer Morningstar would stinking bunt Darkseid to the other side of the multiverse. And then there are characters even more powerful than Lucifer, like the Presence or Elaine. So he's... I guess the way I would put it is, if you're reading typical... if you're reading standard... What am I looking for? Standard... If you're reading typical mainstream comic books, Darkseid's full form is almost definitely more powerful than anybody you're reading about. I guess with only very few exceptions. Someone like if you're reading Dead Man, for example, or if you well, and then I guess you sort of get into the question of what exactly do we consider mainstream? Like, I don't know, Sandman is pretty mainstream, and if any of the characters in Sandman, they kick Darkseid's butt. It's a complicated question. I'm sorry if that didn't really answer it. Your videos are my biggest inspiration for deities. Instead of supporting the Steam sale, I wanted to ask if I can name the Imaginary Axis as an inspiration for my books/stories. Thanks, love you, man. Sure. I mean, if I inspire you guys to do anything, feel free to list me, and I'm honored. I'm honored, really. It's great to know that other people are creating things because of something I created. It's never anywhere I thought I'd be in my life. Okay. More of these. If you're into cosmic horror, have you looked into Dead by Daylight's entity? I actually think I have. Dead by Daylight, it sounds very familiar to me, but I don't remember anything about it. Meaning I probably did look into it and decided either, I don't know, maybe I just glanced at it, or maybe I just decided I wasn't all that interested. I'm unsure. I'll make a note of that, though. Actually, yeah, sure, why not? I'll make a note right now. Dead by Daylight. Alright, cool. My knowledge of Marvel and DC only really reaches as far as the movies, but I really find your videos super interesting. Keep up the great work. It means a lot to me. I'm really happy to hear that, I'm really happy to hear you enjoy what I do. It's the best feeling in the world to know that you're making other people happy. And I mean that sincerely. Have you ever thought about doing a video on God of War? Actually, I have thought about that before, but the problem is, I always miss my window, I feel. And, also, I didn't play God of War until I was super late. Everyone had already played through most of the games by the time I actually started getting into it. And I don't have a lot of time in my life for gaming these days. I will always basically play through the entire product of a game if that game is the subject of something that I'm researching. But I feel like I've just been a tad behind the God of War hype every single time. It's possible you'll get a video on it someday. We'll see what happens. Who, in your opinion, has the next best chance to leave God's creation besides Lucifer? I guess Dr. Manhattan kind of pulled it off, didn't he? I don't know. I guess it really depends who wants to leave, doesn't it? Because there are plenty of characters who feasibly could. I mean, not a great deal of them, honestly. Pretty small percentage at the very top. But there are characters who could leave. But I think a lot of them don't really feel like it and don't want to. They don't see any value in it. Like Perpetua. She could leave. I just don't think she cares to. Let's see what else we've got. Do you have an all-time favorite comic writer? P.S. Thanks for introducing me to some great Grant Morrison stories. Thanks. I'm glad I could. I'm glad I could direct you to an amazing writer. I don't think I do. I don't think I have an all-time favorite comic book writer. And everyone's always like, oh, well, what about like Alan Moore, Grant Morrison, Neil Gaiman? A lot of names come up, but the truth is, everyone has this wholly unique feel to them. And when you read as many comics as I do, you really learn to appreciate the different feels. And depending on your mood, you like one over the other. So it's very hard to say that there's a single author that I like, because I mean, how could you? It's like when people ask me what my favorite food is. Like I tend to say pizza, pepperoni pizza, because that's usually my favorite food. If in a vacuum, I'll usually order pepperoni pizza. There are some days though when I really want ribs, and ribs are also a top tier food for me, and I love some good barbecue ribs. And so someday you might ask me, and I'll be like, "Oh, ribs are my favorite food." And it works the same way with artists, I feel, except for it's much wider, because the brain is infinitely more flexible than your taste buds are. And depending on your mood, you could like any number of different things. Your videos are great. I'd love to see you talk about the Thought Robot. Ah, yes, Cosmic Armor Superman. You'll probably see him eventually. There'll probably... I don't know if it's going to be its own separate video, but at the very least, you'll probably hear him talked about in a video about Superman at some point. Superman's such a big character. It seems like it's impossible to avoid him forever. Of course, my very first video was about Superman, but it'll come around. You know, once I get the inspiration to do it, and I'm like, yeah, that's what's up right now. We'll look into it. Let's see. Rocco's basilisk. What's your opinion of Rocco's basilisk? Do you believe it's real? I don't think I know what that is. We're gonna look it up. Oh, yeah, actually I have heard this. I don't think I knew the name, though. It's the concept of an AI that, hold on, let me make sure I don't misquote it and sound like an idiot. Yeah, it's a sufficiently powerful AI agent that would have an incentive to torture anyone who imagined the agent but didn't work to bring it into existence. Yeah, I've heard of it before. I don't think I knew it by that name. It's not something I've ever studied in great detail. So I don't think I can really afford an opinion on it. Off the top of my head, based on what I just read and the 3 minutes of reading I did at some other point in my life where I'm like, oh yeah, I recognize that concept. I'm gonna say just no. I don't believe in it personally, but maybe I'll do some more looking into it in the future. Maybe it'll show up in a video at some point if I think it's really interesting enough. But no, I don't believe in it right now. Have you thought about doing a video on Orion, his strength compared to his father, or a different character like Thor? I don't think there is going to be any videos about Orion in the foreseeable future. Maybe at some point, but I'm really on a break from the New Gods at the moment. Thor, we'll probably get a Thor video pretty soon. You'll see. It'll be... I think you guys are gonna like it. Any video game characters I want to make a video of? Yes, in fact, there's a Pokemon video coming up very soon. Pokemon is probably going to be my next video. If not, I've got another guy on standby who it might be about, but Pokemon's definitely in my sights. Considering the anti-life equation is expressed by feelings, could it be created by cultivating them? I just don't fully understand how it manifests. You know, during the Darkside research, I had a whole segment initially where I'd done a lot of research into the Excuse me. I did a lot of research into the anti-life equation, and I had a working theory for what I thought it was and all of the little moving parts, but it's been so long ago, and it didn't make it into the final product that I don't know if I can properly... I don't know if I can properly explain what I had initially. I'll give it a shot, though. So, I think the idea behind the anti-life equation, you'll have to forgive me again, because I don't know if this is entirely, if I'm missing pieces from what I'd originally arrived at. I think what I'd come to the conclusion of was it is a equation that proves... it's an equation that proves the... It's an equation that proves the immediate selfishness of all living beings in the universe. Which is why Darkseid, a manifestation of evil, claims that it's the equation that proves he gets to rule everything, because it's mathematical proof that humans and other mortals are naturally selfish, they're naturally evil, they look out for themselves, and they'll kill anything in their way. We're predators, we're hunters. I think that's what the equation ultimately proves. And I had some reasoning behind this. I'd pulled up some stuff about, every time that it had appeared in the comics, and something when Grant Morrison wrote about the anti-death equation, and of course Grant Morrison's heavily involved in a lot of the writing about Darkseid and anti-life, at least as it relates to Abstracta and Darkseid as the form of evil. Unfortunately, I don't have that evidence on me right now. I don't remember a lot of it. I probably should have stinking reread those scripts before I came on here. Should have predicted a question about the anti-life equation. I guess that's my own fault. But yeah, I think that it's proof that we are selfish and only look out for ourselves. And I don't remember all the evidence, but one key point was that in the Mr. Miracle series... Mr. Miracle? Yeah, in the Mr. Miracle series that Grant Morrison had written sort of tying into Final Crisis, when the life equation is mentioned, it's described as, like, being present in people who help others out for no reason, and when Shiloh starts first trying to experience the life equation, he sees a bunch of people being nice around him and doing the opposite of evil, and so the life equation is sort of represented by hope in the same way that Superman is a representation of hope when he kills Darkseid at the end of Final Crisis. And it's this idea that even though we have mathematical proof that we're selfish and evil beings, that doesn't mean that we quit. We keep striving, we keep reaching for that next big thing. You've got to keep moving forward and look beyond what you currently know to be true. Even if you think that's the absolute answer, you can't afford to just sit down and give up, because if there is anything beyond the anti-life equation, something that invalidates it and proves that it's incorrect, the only way you're going to reach it is by continuing to fight that evil nature that we believe rests inside all of us. And I think I could have been much more eloquent about that if I had my research, but unfortunately, it is gone to the wind. So I hope that helped a little bit. Thank you for doing the second part to Darkside. Thank you for watching it. It's probably the video I'm the most proud of right now. It looks fantastic. I'm very happy with how it came out, and I'd never seen anyone really talk about it, so it was very important to me that I get it right. Do you think it's possible for the Justice League to visit Apocalypse like in the Justice League Dark movie, since it exists outside the multiverse? Okay, here's another thing that I didn't really have. I couldn't quite find a place to fit it into my script, Yes, because Darkseid, and I kind of sort of hinted at this in the script, and I hope that some people caught this. Like, some people were watching it and caught on to this point. But Darkseid and everything that exists in the realm of forms emanates downward into the physical universe. They emanate these lesser copies of themselves. And Apocalypse does that too. The reason that Apocalypse is sometimes depicted as inside the universe and outside the universe is because the answer is both. The true Apocalypse with Darkseid exists outside the universe, but they both emanate lesser versions of themselves into the universe proper. So there is an Apocalypse inside space and time that the superheroes can visit and they can fight the people on it, but there's also a much larger, much more dangerous one outside of the physical world. Hey, I love all your content, man. I can't stop going back and rewatching your videos over and over again. Thanks, that means a lot. Do you incorporate philosophy? You incorporate philosophy in such a way that's really easy to understand. I really try. I hope that effort comes through, because it's really an attempt to take these educational concepts that usually sound quite boring and talk about them in a way that doesn't baby the audience, giving you all the information that you would expect to know if you were taking a test or something, but doing it in a fun and exciting way that helps you understand some of the characters you care about a little bit more. You're a scholar of modern myths. I appreciate that. I would like to see an episode on super geniuses. Lex Luthor claims he is human. Is he? Can a human be that smart? Mastery of any skill? I actually do have something in the works right now. It's not being edited or anything like that, but I have something drafted up where I think I'm going to talk about some of the most intelligent characters in fiction and just sort of estimating and talking about how you measure intelligence and what we currently understand about intelligence, and we'll touch on it. We'll touch on it. I'm probably not going to do it right here and right now, though, because that would then why would you watch the video, right? Get ahead of the curve. Maybe do Paul and Leto 2 from Doom. Very interesting set of powers there. Maybe. I don't know a ton about Dune, so that's one of those things where I'd need to start from ground zero, and I'd need to sort of look into it and find out more about the series. I'm very, very choosy about how I do my research, and I'd like to be very thorough about it. I'm a stickler. So I'd first need to sort of be introduced to the series. We'll see what happens. Dude, your videos are awesome. You are one of the best creators for your specific space on the platform. Have you played Hellblade? It's amazing. Do you like synth metal? Look up color chemistry. I have not played Hellblade. I'm sorry. I don't get a lot of time to play video games like I used to. I'd like to, though. I've been sort of working through a couple during my spare time, but they're things like I think they're pretty niche games, and I don't think that any of them really warrant a video, unfortunately. And I have not played Hellblade. If the Flash catches Superman off guard, and the Flash has a chance to get an infinite mass punch-off, would it kill Superman, or would it just hurt him? The infinite mass punch is portrayed somewhat inconsistently, but of course, then again, I guess you could say so is Superman's durability. There have been at least a couple of times when, or maybe I'm just thinking of the one, when the punch was described as near infinite, which is silly, because you can't get near infinite. Either you're there or you aren't. But the way the punch works, just with how the physics behind an infinite mass punch would operate, theoretically, you can hit with any amount of force, between the number 0 all the way to infinity. It depends on how close you get to light speed and how long you're capable of maintaining the ridiculously increasing mass before you hit something. So I would say the typical measurements it's given, like having the force of a white dwarf star or what have you, that would not kill Superman. But if you just kept drawing that out for as long as possible, theoretically, you'd eventually come to some number that would decapitate him or something. That's a disgusting thought. Do I believe in extraterrestrial life, and if so, why haven't we discovered them? I don't know. I don't know if I, there's a part of you that says something has to exist out there, right? Because space is so vast. But then there are other things that are just like, well, you know, like the Fermi paradox is a pretty painful one to get over. Some people have tried proposing that perhaps the reason we haven't seen extraterrestrial life is because it has visited us, but it exists in a way that we don't recognize as life. Like, I don't know, if you were approached by a sentient shade of purple, you'd probably never know that that was happening. But I don't find, while I see where that's coming from, and you know, and also maybe we've invented different ways of communicating. Maybe other people communicate without, like, not through radio waves. Maybe if they got like radio waves or something, they wouldn't know what to do with them. But if there are a few problems with even that answer, where like, well, they should, okay, fine, maybe there are some sentient purples out there, but shouldn't there be some things that are a little bit closer to what we would recognize, and if they've existed long before us, then shouldn't they have also landed here? Those are difficult questions to answer, and I don't have them. I think that if the Great Filter does exist, and if there's something that's stopping life from space travel, I think it's probably located at a very micro level. I think that it's likely the conditions for life are much more complex and nuanced than we recognize, and it's very unlikely for them to sprout up anywhere, because all these really good conditions have to be met. Like, for example, we're in a very good place in space, just where Earth is located, because we're positioned at a good distance from the sun, but there are other things in the solar system keeping us safe. Like, for example, Jupiter acts as sort of a massive shield in front of us, and it absorbs a lot of debris and things that would normally careen toward the Earth and just end us. So it might just be that life is complex, it's unlikely to form, it's very fragile, and we hit all the buttons in just the right place. Hey Tyler, I'm from the UK. Thank you very much for the awesome content you create. I always look forward to seeing your videos and learn more. Keep up the great work. Thanks. It means a lot to me. I really, every time I hear it, it means a lot. Thank you. Sorry, I'm sorry. I feel like I'm so darn anti-charismatic when I'm doing these things, and I'm reading these and stumbling over every word. I apologize. Clearly, there's a reason that I edit my videos. I'm in the middle of something right now. I'll try to stick around for as long as I can, but you're my favorite YouTuber. Every episode amazes me, and you always prove me wrong when I think it can't get any better, so thank you. Gosh, you guys are the best. You're so awesome. Thank you. You're cool. Have a good day. You guys are so freaking nice. I have the best fan base, I swear. Yeah, so I don't really know what to put here. I love your stuff. Make more for me. Watch 1,000 times. Have a good stream, my man. Again, just proof that the imaginary friends are truly the friendliest imaginary friends on the planet. Thank you, Sean Force. You have a fantastic day, buddy. Love your videos. Out of curiosity, how do you get ideas / how do you do your research? That is a good question. Yeah, I know earlier I said I try to only make videos people will watch, and that's half true. Part of it is I believe people will watch a video when I put out, but that doesn't always necessarily mean that the video is about a popular topic. You guys have probably noticed that I don't always release a video to, like, coincide with a movie, and sometimes, like, oh, everyone's talking about Thanos right now, and I'll just be like, Darkseid or whatever. There is a method to my madness, but it's probably one you wouldn't easily guess, and that is, I make videos that I would want to watch. I make videos that meet they meet this threshold of, on one hand, people are looking for this right now and people will watch it, and on the other hand, I would love to watch it if someone else made it. I am my own sort of demographic. I generally think if I can watch the video and think that it's cool and awesome, then there are probably other people who think the same. But there are a few niche things that I'm interested in that's just like, now isn't the time. Like, it's something about the atmosphere or the culture or a conversation that's going on right now, or just no one's talking about this thing and no one wants to know about it. I think I do a pretty good job of gauging where the interest is, but every video you see is a video that I would personally like to see, and I think that's part of what makes it good, because I want to create something that I would be excited to view if I were in any of your shoes. I also kind of live under a rock. I don't do a lot of stuff. I used to back in the day, but I don't do a lot of stuff where I'm going around watching other YouTubers' channels or I'm seeing what other people have to say about certain characters, because I think it keeps me unique and it makes me keep to my own brand. I try not to follow trends in the sense that, oh, everyone's making a video about this, so I've got to make a video about that. It's a very balanced cross-section of, this would be really interesting, and I've, for whatever reason, found this concept, and I'm really digging it lately, and I'm really digging into it lately. And also, hey, people are talking about this, so, you know, add some of that in. Anyway, moving on. Do you really know who Mordru is? So is he really stronger than the Presence? Mordru is not stronger than the Presence. I do know who he is, though. He's very powerful, not nearly as powerful as the Presence. He's a very intense Lord of Chaos. I recently read through... what did I read through recently? Amethyst. Yeah, I read through Amethyst, Princess of Gemworld, all the way through again recently, just because I was thinking I might do something with her. I still might. The Lords of Order and Chaos are definitely on the table, but Mordru, he's a force to be reckoned with. Not as strong as God. Who do you think would win in a fight, Unicron or Galactus? I think Galactus should be able to win that, but in fairness, I haven't done as much research on Unicron as I think I should. I know who he is, and I've done some looking into him. I've read some comics with him, I've seen some movies with him, and I've read some descriptions about him and stuff like that, because he's someone I want to cover eventually. But I'm not done, and until I'm finished, I don't think I should really be saying for sure if Galactus would beat him. But right now, based on what I know about the two, Galactus should win. It's also important to remember, if Galactus has the ultimate nullifier, holy cow. The ultimate nullifier allows Galactus to jump a whole level. Like earlier, we were asking, like, oh, who would win between Darkseid and Galactus? And I said, true form Darkseid would just annihilate Galactus. If Galactus has the ultimate nullifier, then he actually becomes a contender against true form Darkseid. That's how absurd the ultimate nullifier is. It's a crazy weapon. What happened to the real Axis? What did you do? You'll never know. Next question. How strong is the spirit of vengeance? How strong are these spirits of vengeance? I think you're talking about Ghost Rider, and I sort of did a video on him, but it was really more about human fear and what causes us to be scared, and just some of the philosophical questions about the Ghost Rider as well. Not near as deep as like the Darkside video, but some light philosophy there. The Ghost Rider, when completely unchained and not being held down by his host, I think he's posed a threat to Mephisto before. And I recently talked about roughly Mephisto's level in the Galactus video, so that's probably a good place to start. I think that Mephisto has also beaten him, so they're close. They're like around the same level. It isn't like he just bunted Mephisto out of existence. But yeah, they're Yeah, that's probably a good range to put him in. A completely unchained Ghost Rider can fight pretty evenly with Mephisto, and Mephisto has destroyed or threatened to destroy multiple universes just as a side effect of his clashes before, while outside of his realm. While inside of his realm, he's much more powerful. But the exact extent to which I'm not entirely positive. It's kind of a proof by example fallacy situation. We know he's not omnipotent, even though he claims that he is when he's in his realm. And there have been things that have kicked his butt in his realm before, such as Franklin Richards or the Thanos with the Infinity Gauntlet. But inside his realm, he's able to sort of contend with Galactus when Galactus is kind of hungry. So I would say that that's about as high as I would put Ghost Rider or the Spirits of Vengeance. I think you missed my super chat. I'm sorry. I'm really doing my best. I don't know how. Is there like a way to look back at past super chats? I'm really doing my best. I'm sorry if I miss your super chat. I really do apologize. I'm trying. Any updates on the Comics Explained collab? We did talk briefly on Twitter about doing something, and I think I eventually said I was okay with it, but I haven't heard from Rob since. It's fine. He's doing his own thing. I'm doing my own thing. I'd be happy to work with him anytime, but I understand and appreciate that I can be difficult to get a hold of sometimes. And I'm not doing collabs on my channel either, so that does feel a little... that feels a little... I feel like I can't whine about someone not letting me on their channel when I'm not really letting anyone on mine at the moment because I'm busy doing my own thing. It seems quite hypocritical. So Rob's free to take as long as he wants for us to do our Cosmic Hierarchy video or whatever he had in mind for Marvel. It's fine. If you look into doing an anime character, look into Alucard from Hellsing Ultimate. He has an interpretation of the Schrodinger's cat paradoxes of power. I've seen that. I've actually watched Hellsing, and I don't think I have any plans to do anything on that for the time being. But you know, if something comes up and I think that Hellsing's a good place to go, then we'll look into it. It isn't much, but here's some beer and or coffee money. You rock, dude. Just keep doing your own thing. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Have a good one. I don't drink beer or coffee, but I'll use it on something. I promise. I'll spend $10 on something, and I'll think of Sean Peters. I really appreciate the help. Thanks for the work you do. Dumb question. If you have to take two characters with you to a zombie apocalypse, who would you pick? No superpowers. Well, if we're talking about no super... These are the kinds of questions that I think that I often overanalyze and sort of end up cheating on. So let's just say, if we're not doing superpowers, then I'm just going to pick some people who I think don't have superpowers, who would be able to help me survive a zombie apocalypse. So let's do Batman and Iron Man. I think they're both pretty safe. I would take Batman and Iron Man with me in a zombie apocalypse. Thank you for the $5. Who would you say is above the presence? That is a very complicated question. And I know I've been saying that a lot. I hope it doesn't seem like I'm dodging questions from people, because I'm really not. It's just you guys have a bunch of... You're really hitting me with some loaded ones. I have some plans to be doing... Or I've had plans for a while, honestly, to be doing a video on sort of the presence and Elaine Belloc and various other transcendent entities like that. I would say that in order to answer that question, you sort of have to understand the presence's relationship with the source. And in order to further extrapolate from what that means, you have to determine how you're going to view the DC Comics as a whole. There's this sort of metafictional view that puts the author and the writer above literally everything. Like, the writer himself is treated as a character that's just all-knowing and all-powerful in-universe. And that's a fine way of viewing it. And of course, if you look at it that way, then he would certainly be above the presence. But when looking at the relationship between the presence and the source, you have to eventually start dealing with the law of identity, which is what is and isn't the presence at that point. From some philosophic perspectives, you could argue that the presence is literally everything in DC from a certain all-encompassing perspective, at which point there just isn't anyone above him. If we talk about the presence existing as the source and as the concept that he's where everything came from and he's the omnipotent entity of the universe that created everything and knows everything, and all of the different realms floating within the monitor mind are all just like these creations that that he's ordered be created by the super celestials. There really isn't anything above that. So it's a nuanced question. I'll probably discuss it in more detail at some point in the future, but it depends on how you're shifting your perspective. A lot of DC is about how you look at it, and I'm not even saying that from like an artistic standpoint. I'm saying that as like there is a lot in DC that once we get up into the really, really high cosmic powers, the law of identity becomes very blurred. When you meet Death of the Endless, what will you say? I'll say, about time. Alright, more questions. Why are most Reed Richards aligned more towards bad, but the 6161 is virtually the only good one? They're infinite Reed Richards, so technically speaking, they're infinite bad ones and infinite good ones. I think you're really asking why do we see so many bad ones, and that's probably just because it's interesting, and comic book writers are trying to sort of create good conflicts. But if you want me to quit being cheeky and actually answer the question, there might be a narrative there about how devoting oneself too much toward logic and reason inevitably leads to corruption. And I'm not advocating against logic when I say that, and I don't think any of the writers are either, but I think there is some truth that you need a little bit of heart in everything that you do, and it shouldn't be the thing that leads you around by the nose, and you shouldn't find yourself you shouldn't let yourself be led off a cliff by your heart. But it's important to incorporate it into your life, because the more and more you're overcome by cold, hard logic and reason, if that makes every single one of your decisions, you're going to find yourself doing some very inhumane things. Ethics boards exist for a reason. Love you and hope you make more videos when you can. I will. Thanks for being around. Okay, hold on, just a sec. I feel like I have a friend here who's texting me other questions that he's getting, but I'm trying to answer all the super chats first because they're disappearing before I can get to them, and I don't want people to waste their money. Hey Tyler, I love your videos. Can you explain the Omega effect? I know it's the source of Darkseid's powers. I don't recall you explaining it in your videos. The Omega effect is... It's sort of the source of Darkseid's powers. The way that I saw it was Euxis. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing his name right. Come to think of it, I never said it in the video itself. He sort of bathed himself in the Omega effect and came out as Darkseid, right? And that was after the previous god of evil had sort of died, and the universe, the physical world, was still forming. So the concept of evil needed a replacement. And of course, a lot of this is mixtures with stuff that Jack Kirby wrote and Grant Morrison's retcons years later. But the way that I viewed it was that the remnants of what evil was sort of made the Omega effect, and when Darkseid infused himself with it, he became it. Like, you'll notice, for example, when Lex Luthor gets the Omega effect in one of those New 52 stories, I can't remember Darkside War, yeah, right after Darkside War, Lex Luthor gets the Omega effect, he really struggles for a while. He starts saying, "I am Darkseid," or something along those lines, and he's trying to hold himself up, "I am Lex Luthor," or whatever. It's because the Omega effect sort of is Darkseid, and they don't exist apart from each other, if you're picking up what I'm putting down. The concept of evil itself is sort of shapeless and formless, but this exists in a realm beyond form, where these new god-like entities fuse themselves with these, like, energy entities, and they can become new abstracta by these interactions. You know, when I said, like, everything they do should be affecting our world, well, that's true. Think about what would happen if, like, the abstracta of a lamp, for example, just as a random example, were to shatter, and just, it's no longer there. Lamps can't exist in the universe anymore. They would all just disappear because of how the world of forms affects the mortal world. And so, in a similar way, every little thing that these new gods are doing affects the way our reality functions. The concept of evil itself fundamentally changed when Darkseid fused himself with the Omega effect. And it's what fuels his body, it's what fuels all of his attacks, it's what fuels his power, and it's in the name. Omega is the end. It's the opposite, you know, it was the final letter of the Greek alphabet. And it makes up fundamentally who Darkseid is. I'm a metrologist. Oh, the study of measurement. I love math and science, but I can't say I've ever decided to apply it to YouTubing. What would you do if you weren't a YouTuber, or what do you do/want to do? I really like working on YouTube. I do. And there are other things that I do, obviously, but this is something I'm very passionate about. And I'd like to do this more full-time in the future and just put more stuff out. But initially, if I couldn't do YouTube, I think there's a part of me that's like, oh, I'd want to make film, you know, in Hollywood or something like that. But I actually, I had that thought a long time ago, and I don't think it's actually something I'd enjoy. So much red tape and just politics, I don't want to get involved in it. But I was studying for some time to get a PhD eventually in IO psychology, which is a type of psychology where you're essentially working in a business and you're trying to you're studying every little thing that makes people more productive and that makes businesses successful, and how to apply psychological concepts to the corporate side of things. So I guess if I just had to choose anything, I'd probably go back to that. It was very fascinating, and it was a sort of science where I got to interact with people a lot, and that's why I really appreciated about it. Because initially I was just interested in science, but when I tried to do other sciences, I ran into the problem that a lot of it is basically one guy in a room trying to solve the questions of the universe by himself, and I wanted more human interaction. Psychology involves humans by necessity, so that's what I went with. Since the Infinity Gauntlet only works in its own universe, wouldn't it, in its own universe, be able to counteract the effects of the reality bomb? Yeah, it probably would. I gotta say, I'm not a scholar on the reality bomb, but yeah, I think that should work in theory. If this is a reference to something I said during the Infinity Jaeger video, understand most of that was nonsense. Like that entire thing was an April Fool's video. It was just me having fun. Yeah, okay, hold on. Oh gosh. Yeah, so I don't really know what to put here. I love your stuff. Oh wait, I already read that one. Sorry. Give me a second. Best regards from Puerto Rico. Thanks for existing. Thank you for existing. And keep existing. Do us all a favor. Where did I place Vandal Savage in terms of strength and immortality? He's strong. As far as immortality, he's not gonna beat up Superman. He's strong for a human. Immortality. His level of immortality, I don't think I quite understand the question. He's immortal because of his exposure to certain specific radiation, if I remember correctly. And you could theoretically still kill him if you did a number of things to him. And maybe there are some feats I'm unfamiliar with, but I'm pretty sure that if you were to just annihilate him, just atom by atom, he'd be gone. There are better levels of immortality. People like Dr. Manhattan can rebuild themselves from that, and there are certain people who can rebuild themselves from having their atoms destroyed and their soul destroyed, and there are certain people who can continue to persist even if you've erased the concept of them. Immortality comes in a lot of different shapes. Vandal Savage has a pretty basic form of it. I think if you were to ever seriously mutilate him, you wouldn't kill him, but you'd basically just make his life miserable. So, moving on. How powerful is Death of the Endless? Ridiculously powerful. There are few characters that compare to the Endless. They're not at the very top, but they're near the top of the DC food chain. Tyler, you might be the nicest creator on YouTube, and your content is thought-provoking and inspirational. Thank you for being you. Oh, that's so kind. Thanks, Adrian. You're a great person. Thanks for brightening up my day. Hannibal Lecter versus Dexter. I'm pretty sure that Dexter has nearly destroyed the planet a few times. He creates some pretty ridiculous inventions. He's as long as Dee stays out of his laboratory, I think he can probably take Hannibal Lecter with fairly little difficulty. I know you're talking about the killer Dexter. I just honestly I don't know a lot about that character, so I can't really comment on it. If you could have any video game character crossover with DC and Marvel, what would it be, and what do you think would happen? Any video game character. I would have to think about that. You're giving me a lot of liberty there. So, in order to not waste, a lot of time pondering and sitting here in silence thinking about a question, I'm just going to say, I think that the Persona series has a lot of elements that would fit interestingly well with DC's sort of magic side. There's a lot of Sandman-like elements to Persona. I could see those two crossing over, and that'd be really neat. Is that all? Did I get through all the super chats? Oh wait, no I did not. Hold on. You said that the new God/Fourth World characters, because their archetypes exist in all universes and timelines at once, right? Yes. There is outside of the physical world, they exist in this sort of metaphysical realm of abstracta, and their presence there causes lesser forms of them to emanate down into all universes and timelines, meaning there's an individual Darkseid, an individual Apocalypse, an individual Highfather, an individual Orion, etc., 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 in every single universe, in every single timeline throughout all of DC. Do they die? Sometimes. If you killed Darkseid in one reality, that emanation would be dead. But that doesn't mean that he didn't exist there to begin with. He was there, and then an explosion or something killed him. And the real one still exists. That was just an emanation you dealt with, one of an infinite number of them. Hey Tyler, greetings from Italy. Hi Italy. Do you know anything about the mythology in Evangelion? Angels, Adam, Lilith. Would you make a video on it? I know a little bit about the mythology in Evangelion. I think, oh gosh, have I been pronouncing it wrong? Unfortunately, I've never seen the series all the way through, and I know I'm gonna get a lot for that. Yeah, I've been told that it's one of those must-see anime, and I guess I'm an uncultured swine. For what it's worth, I don't watch any of the CW shows anymore either, and people have gotten on to me for that. I don't think I've seen enough of that show to do a video on it right now. Will I one day feel comfortable with it? Sure, it's entirely possible. If I just decide this is something that I think people would watch, and it's something that I'm interested in, then yeah, I'll do it someday. We'll see what happens. But right now, there are no plans. I still need to actually finish the series before I get into all that. If Flash was to absorb the entire Speed Force, would it affect only speedsters or everyone that is light speed and above? That should only affect people who are using the Speed Force. I know the Speed Force is sometimes portrayed as sort of an aspect of reality that maintains like the universal motion, but frankly, we've never seen any adverse effects when a large amount of it's siphoned off like that. The only people it's ever affected are people who are directly tapping into it. So I would expect that would continue. If the entire Speed Force was gone, every Speed Force user would find themselves depowered, and they'd be like, what's going on? But that'd be about the most of it. You said the Endless weren't the very top of DC power levels, so who is? Who's at the very top? That would be the Source. And again, there's some issues with the law of identity up there. You could also argue that the Source is the Presence, and the Presence is the Source, and Elaine Bellick is the Presence and the Source, and complicated stuff. I'll eventually do a video on it. I don't know when it'll happen, but you have my word that if I don't die, that will eventually be something I talk about. What is it you think of what do you think of Merlin in Marvel versus Merlin in DC? I love your videos. The multiverse ones are the best. Well, the Marvel version of Merlin is kind of just the worst person you'll ever meet. he's a scumbag, isn't he? He's a good guy, but he's always just he's messing with everyone, and he's screwing with everyone's plans. I think as far as just people, I'd probably rather hang out with the DC version. And also, the DC version has gone through a lot of iterations. I'm gonna really need to. I have some stuff I want to talk about regarding magic pretty soon, and I'm going to have to sort of go through all of the Merlins and figure out what's going on with that guy, because either there are multiple Merlins, or there are multiple interpretations of him, or multiple perspectives on him. There might be some dream Sandman shenanigans going on with the different identities of Merlin going present in DC, but you'll find that Merlin's interpretations sort of differ from story to story in DC. He's more consistent, I think, in Marvel. And maybe I'll be able to reconcile those. Maybe I won't. Maybe there are multiple. Maybe there's just one, and he's sort of like a god, where it depends on how you're viewing him. His personality seems different from different perspectives. Superman Prime versus Quantum Superman. Who wins? Superman Prime? Are we talking about like? Are we talking like Superboy Prime? That guy? Yeah, the Quantum Superman should be able to take care of him. He's very strong. Don't get me wrong. Superboy Prime is a holdover from pre-Crisis Superman days, where he could destroy multiple universes. He's very strong, but Quantum Superman is just on a different level. Okay, that is all of the Super Chats. I'm really sorry for everyone who didn't send in a Super Chat, because I've just been reading Super Chats up until this point. Holy cow, I've been on here for an hour now. I'm going to go on to some non-Super Chat questions now, as soon as I read yet another Super Chat question. and then hopefully we'll. If you've been waiting at the end of the line, hopefully now would be a good time to ask whatever you were going to ask. What won't the Ultimate Nullifier destroy? The Ultimate Nullifier cannot. It can be overpowered by the Infinity Gauntlet, and by direct comparison, anything more powerful than the Infinity Gauntlet can probably take it on. Which year would Kirby be in Marvel and DC in terms of power? He always seems like a parody of a character similar to Saitama. No, I don't think Kirby's like Saitama. Kirby tells a very, from what I understand, it's a very linear, basic story. Saitama's there for the gags. Kirby is just a cutesy game that's secretly about killing gods. And he's very strong, but I haven't ever really tried to get a pin on that. Sort of like asking me how strong Super Mario is. Like, yes, I'm sure I could come up with something if I really looked into it, but off the top of my head, it's not clear. I need to do some more research, and I hope that doesn't disappoint you guys when I say I need to do more research. Like, I think some people just think I'm gonna know everything off of the top of my head, and the truth is I'm very careful about what I say, so I don't want to say something silly and then later look back and go, well, so do I have... I've heard some different estimates, and I've played some Kirby games, so I have some sort of ideas in my head, but none of them are solidified, and I don't want to say anything until they are. Flash sometimes has been seen as a lightweight in the Justice League, and other times he's seen fighting on par with gods. How is that? The Flash's power depends on... He sort of amplifies everything he's doing with the Speed Force. When he hits you, he's hitting you with a punch that's... like, if he just hit you with his hand, he'd break his hand. It's like packed with a bunch of Speed Force energy, sort of, to protect him, so he can become super durable and hit you with, like, a really, really strong Wonder Woman-type punch. And so it really just depends on how much Speed Force he's gathered, I suppose. It's sort of like the age-old question of how strong is Superman? The answer is, it depends on how much solar energy he's had. Writers purposefully write some of these characters with these explanations about their powers waxing and waning so that they can account for different interpretations throughout the years. When you're working with a character like Flash, or like Superman, or even like the Hulk, you really need to ask not how strong are they, but what is the strongest we have seen them become before? And the same thing works for the Flash. The reason he looks like a lightweight sometimes is I'd imagine he's not doing a great job of packing that Speed Force punch. And the reason other times he seems like he's just running through everybody is because he's on a roll that day. All right, let's see some other questions here. Hey, Tyler, could you make a video about Marvel's most powerful beings, including Oblivion and Regulator Thanos, in the conversation? Yes, I will probably talk about those characters at some point. Will it be a video? Will it be like a hierarchical video about everything in the Marvel Universe? That's pretty unlikely. But yeah, those characters will eventually come up. I'll be talking about some of the Marvel cosmics at some point. Really appreciate your work. I think it's great. Thanks. It means a lot. Again, it's just I'm really humbled every time I hear you guys talk about liking my work, because I feel like I don't deserve it. Thanks. You're all great. Hey Tyler, could you make a video comparing supervillain intelligence, maybe putting them on an IQ scale? The publishers aren't very clear with their intelligence scales. Actually, coincidentally, I answered something like this earlier. I'm probably going to be doing something like that. I've sort of already got something in the works. It's still in the early stages, but yeah, I answered a question earlier saying it's probably on the table. I'll probably talk about it eventually. Okay. Trigon is a loser. What? How does where have you been? How has Batman integrated alien tech into his arsenal? these are all things different writers. Sometimes he has, sometimes he hasn't. It really depends on what you're reading. Like, has he ever, like, in the history of comics? Yeah, he's done it before. Is he right now? I don't think so. You know what? I'm going to take a moment to read some of these questions that my friend's been texting me. I apologize that it's taken me so long to get to these. Can Alien X beat both the DC and Marvel universe? No. No, he cannot. Alien X is not anywhere near that powerful. He's strong. I didn't mean he's not powerful at all. He's just, he cannot defeat all of DC and Marvel, no. If Marvel's one below all is the real devil in the real hell, how is it Mephisto gets his own hell with dead souls and such, two hells? Mephisto's hell isn't actually hell. He only calls it hell to play off of the fear of hell. He's actually mentioned this a few times. It's just some fiery realm, and he has the ability to manipulate souls and stuff, and he makes deals for souls, and he keeps souls there, and it has a similar theme to hell, but it's not the real hell, no. It's just another dimension off the, sort of attached to the 616 reality. There are a lot of little pocket dimensions like that. When I say pocket dimension, there's nothing indicating it's a very small dimension. It's probably, you know, the same size as the regular universe, but it's sort of latched on to, like, the 9 realms of Yggdrasil and all that, and the massive 616 reality. Have I heard of hypercrisis theory? Yes, I have. You guys can do you. I don't think I'm going to be doing a hypercrisis video, though. How tall are you? I am 6'3". Alright. More questions. If Galactus is the cosmic filter, how come some of the advanced races like the Kree and Asgardians live? You know, Odin actually had an interesting perspective on this. Sorry, there's a plane. Is that a plane? Or is that someone mowing their lawn? I don't know. Yes, Galactus acts as a cosmic filter, but you've got to understand, just because certain highly advanced races have managed to avert destruction by him, doesn't mean they haven't been hindered by him. Part of the reason that entities like the Asgardians and the Kree haven't taken over the entire universe is because they have had setbacks caused by Galactus. You know, they'll have, like, settlements consumed by him. They'll have to ship a lot of resources to help deal with a recent Galactus sighting or a Galactus incident. They have to move massive amounts of people to immigrate from place to place, and this results in this results in taking their attention away from things like conquering the entire universe. Galactus has sort of weeded some of them out just as much as he does anything else. They've escaped destruction. It doesn't mean that they've not been affected at all. I'm super curious on hearing your opinion of Doomsday and how powerful he is, because we've seen him beating the Justice League a few times. I don't really think that... I don't really think that's something that I can answer here. I'm sorry, I don't mean to, like, disappoint. I really don't. I don't think this is the right place for me to do a whole analysis of how powerful something like Doomsday is. People have been asking me stuff like, oh, you know, can this character beat that character? I've been giving quick... Maybe I'm a little long-winded, but I've been giving relatively quick answers to all of these. I think Doomsday is someone who we would need to do a video on. We would need to do either an entire video or sort of like Mephisto and Odin, he'd need to make guest appearances in someone else's video. Alright, yeah. More non-super chat questions. What on earth is making that noise outside, I swear? Will I dab into the world of anime more? Yeah, quite likely. I'll probably do another anime video at some point. I don't know when. I love anime. It's just some of the best entertainment money can buy right now. How does Galactus compare to the Anti-Monitor? The Anti-Monitor is more powerful than Galactus. The Anti-Monitor is... Well, one thing that you need to understand about monitors is they're capable of sort of altering their size and dimensionality, which is why you see some in, like, the monitor sphere way above everything, like, sitting in these realms that have no space and no time and no dimensions, but they're also capable of minimizing themselves, sort of, and fitting into the regular realm, when they do that, they're literally microscopic from their original level. Galactus would be like a germ compared to the Anti-Monitor in his full glory. Are there any characters aside from the Flash that have the power to manipulate kinetic energy? Oh yeah, certainly. That's like... I don't know. Well, that's one of those things where I feel like I should name off some characters, but I feel like it really gets into the specifics of, alright, are we going to, like, if I name one character, am I going to be told, well, you know, he doesn't technically control kinetic energy, he does blah, blah, blah. I'd like to have some notes together before I try and compile a list of kinetic energy manipulators, but no, Flash is not the only person who can do that. It's not a very common superpower, but it exists elsewhere. If Superman gets his power from the sun, doesn't that place a cap on his output, equal to the current theoretical max output of the nearest star, if he doesn't break the laws of physics like Galactus? He does break the laws of physics like Galactus, and we'll probably eventually talk about that. Superman can output much more energy than a sun. Like, and it's kind of insane how much more. It does make him sort of look like a mini Galactus on some level, but I don't think Superman is going to explode himself and save the multiverse in the future. I think that's solely a Galactus job. Do I believe in God in real life like the presence? In fact, I do. I'm a non-denominational Christian, though I think if you were to align me with any specific denomination, you'd find me closest to a Baptist. Have you ever thought about covering Index? Oh, Railgun. Oh, okay. I have not. I have not put a lot of thought into that. Let me just make sure I'm not being dumb here. Yeah, you are talking about the anime. Okay. That's not something that I've looked into, really. Is it something that, again, anything could happen. People keep asking me to do more anime, and since there's an interest in it, I will. I'll eventually do more anime. I never wanted to confine myself entirely to comic books, and it's quite possible that someday we'll switch from comic books entirely and we'll do something else. But, no, I have not. I'm not planning on doing Railgun. I think, again, I have a couple anime in mind that I might work with, but we'll just have to see. We'll just have to see how they play out. Because before I even get to that, I have a few more comic book things I need to get off my chest. Someone's asking me who would win between Darkseid and Trigon. Darkseid's emanations would lose to Trigon. Trigon's true form... Darkseid's emanations would lose to Trigon. Darkseid's true form would annihilate Trigon, though. There's not even a competition there. He'd just destroy him. Is Darkseid a necessity? By the way, I use your videos to teach my Physics of Superheroes class. Oh, that's so awesome! I'm happy to hear that I'm used in an actual classroom. That's amazing. I get this sometimes. Like, teachers will tell me, oh yeah, I used your Deadpool video to talk about biology or something, and I'm really happy to help. Keep doing that. Is he a necessity? It's confusing. On one hand, yes. Like, there was a time when the Spectre killed him, but he actually got revived by the Source acting as the Presence, because... And when the Spectre tried to figure out why, the Source basically told him it's because evil is necessary to exist in the universe. Otherwise, it doesn't function, because then there's only good, and it capes over everything. And... So from that perspective, yes, he's necessary for existence. But from another perspective, In Final Crisis, the entire story sort of revolved around how the universe was changing, and it was shifting to where the gods or the abstracta were no longer necessary, and humanity was going to sort of write their own fate and their own laws and evolve into basically the new gods of the future. So all of the new gods were dying out, and it's clear that by that point, the universe had shifted and Darkseid wasn't necessary anymore. So he died at the end of that story, and the only reason he was revived was because of the empty hand, and I sort of went into that at the end of my Darkseid is not a god video. Do I... Hold on. I've already answered that one. Someone would love to see me make a video on a game called One Shot. Oh, I've played One Shot. It's a good game. Probably not going to make a video on it, but I've got to admit, now that I've had it suggested, like that's intriguing. I never would have thought about it, but I don't know. You know, maybe I'll replay it at some point, and if I think there's potential there, I'll look into it. Yeah, okay, so some people ask me, do I know Galactus has a daughter? Yes. In fact, when I talked about how Galactus had no relatives, I showed a picture of his daughter looking sad. That was part of the joke. And the reason is, Galacta, I think her name was Galacta, she's been non-canon for a very long time. That's why you never see her referenced anymore, and why she's never made another appearance. Marvel declared her non-canon ages ago. And sometimes I'll do this in my video, where I say something, and I sort of show a visual meant to signify to the audience, yes, I already know what you're going to... I already know what some people are going to say to try and, like, contradict... Like, to try and point out that, oh, you were wrong here. And the reason that's there is because I just didn't have the time. I maybe, in retrospect, I should have had a little pop-up appear, sort of like I did for the Phoenix and for Yggdrasil, like, explaining that Galacta is no longer canon. But it was sort of... Galactus showing up while I said Darkseid has no relatives was sort of meant to signify to the audience, I'm aware of Galactus' existence, but I still do not consider Darkseid to have any relatives. And I was sort of hoping that would cause people to sort of read between the lines, and people who didn't know that she was non-canon might be like, oh, what's he doing there? And then look into it and find the answer. I don't know, maybe that's a little bit too hopeful for me. Sometimes, you guys are so smart that I swear that came out sounding more bragging than I meant for it to sound. But legit, sometimes you guys are so clever, you catch such tiny little things that I hide in the videos that I sometimes think I can get away with pulling a slick one like that, and it just causes a bunch of confusion. How do hell weapons work? I'm not entirely sure what you're talking about. Hell weapons? Hold on. Let's do a Google search. What are we talking about here? Hell weapons? Talking about, like, Saints Row? Magical weapons? I don't know what you're talking about. Just weapons made in hell? It's work the same way anything else does, I suppose. Sorry. I wish I could help you out there. You paid $2. Hello from Belarus. Is Thanos a lot less powerful in Avengers than he is in other universes? To be honest, he seems really weak in the film. Yeah, he really is. But that tends to be how it works in film. A lot of the film adaptations of the Avenger characters are weaker. The Infinity Gauntlet doesn't quite work the same way that it does in the normal 616 reality. And I'm not entirely sure why that is, but I suspect it has something to do with the fact that they don't want to, like... Well, I remember hearing it explained that they didn't want to use Thanos' like origin with death in the film because they thought that might that regular audiences might not get it, might freak them out a little bit. And I think it's a similar thing when it comes to power levels. I think sort of putting aside the budget and the difficulty of portraying some of that stuff in live action, which is a feat in and of itself, it might blow some audiences away, because I don't think most audiences are expecting to have, multiversal terrors on the screen. It's something a lot of people aren't used to, and I think Hollywood's kind of shy of portraying it that way. Why does comic Nick Fury hate the Avengers? I mean, other than the fact that he's like, I don't think if there was a single incident, then I'm unaware of it. Maybe I should look into that. But as far as I'm aware, it's because Nick Fury is sort of a control freak. He's constantly paranoid, and he likes to have his hands on everything, and the Avengers sort of just add chaos to his day. And, like, they're doing good things, but he likes to sort of be... They're both on the same team. They're both trying to do good things, but he likes to sort of have his hand in everyone's pie, and the Avengers they often throw that off. Any thoughts on Marvel's The Sentry? I am not a huge Sentry fan, and I know that might make some people upset. I've read some stories where he's portrayed fine, but it's not. He's not a character that resonates with me super strong, and I don't want that to be. I'm not gonna treat him unfairly. I'm not gonna if people really want a video about him, I'll do one, and I'll look into it. And I swear, every time I look into a character, even when I didn't think I was that interested, and I always find something I love about them somewhere. So maybe I just need to do a project on the Sentry to figure out what makes everyone so crazy about him. But yeah, I'm not his biggest fan. Sorry. I don't mean to crush your dreams. I'm never gonna be unfair to him or something, though, and not give him what he's worth. He's a very strong character. I'm not gonna sell him short for the things he's done. What would be the opposite of Darkseid in the DC universe? Well, it depends what you mean by opposite. I'm sorry that I keep having these vague answers, but to a certain degree, you could say Highfather is his opposite, right? That's literally the opposing force to Darkseid in the abstract realm of the gods. But in the same way, if we consider Darkseid a whole, literal evil, the absence of good, then to a degree you could say that God himself is Darkseid's opposite, and the Presence is the opposite of Darkseid. That the Presence is still significantly more powerful than Darkseid, but there's definitely a case to be made there. The biology/physics of Godzilla. Any interest? Not right now. Maybe someday. If people are really clamoring for it, maybe I'll do a video on it. I think there are a lot of things that I would want to talk about that I've... the first thing that comes to my mind is the... what am I thinking of? The square cube law? I think that's what I'm thinking of right now. And that one I sort of talked about in the Spider-Man video. I don't know. Maybe someday. It's not on my list at the moment. Is Mr. Miracle the new god of freedom? Yes. That's actually that's actually directly stated, I believe, at some point in one of Grant Morrison's stories. Hey Tyler, have you watched any of the DCAU movies? If so, what are your opinions on them? I also wish you'd be a consultant for comic book films for a more accurate portrayal of the physics and such. Oh, you're so kind. I wish. Thinking if Marvel or DC picked me up, hey, you guys, I will do it for free. I will write a guidebook on your multiverses for free. Just hit me up anytime. My email is public. Have I watched any of the movies? Yeah, I've watched them. I think I keep up with the animated movies a lot better than I do the CW TV shows, and they're good. I think DC usually makes some really solid animated films. They've been getting... Sometimes I think they're a bit too dark. I do like that Marvel's willing to swing into the fantastical, and DC, for whatever reason, they like to go into this really dark place more often, and I think there should be a proper balance, perfectly balanced, like everything should be. If I could have a Superman game, how would you want it to play? Personally, I think a fast-paced game like DMC/Bayonetta would be perfect. Actually, yes. I think that's about it. I've been asked this question before, and I always say about the same thing. I think it needs to be a fast game. There need to be a lot of combos and cool moves you can do. There's this problem where, I've heard people pitch Superman games before, and they're always trying to, like, power him down at the beginning. Like, he falls into a pile of kryptonite or something. He has to earn his powers back over time. It's like, nah, man, stinging. Have him just... You want to be tearing through things with Superman. You want to be throwing planets at people. There are some great things you could do with a Superman game, especially with how technology's evolved. I completely agree that it would... with things like God of War, Devil May Cry, and Bayonetta, there's no reason that we shouldn't be able to make a good Superman game in today's world. Superman versus Goku. Again, I talked about this earlier. I don't really do versus comparisons. These hotly debated. Oh, do you think the Sentry could beat this guy, or the Hulk could beat that person? I'm sorry. I appreciate the $2. You can ask for a refund if you want, I guess. But I don't really. It would be more concise if I explained to you. It would be better, I think, if I explained to you what Superman is capable of, what Goku is capable of, and then later had you show up and sort of like compare my own comparisons, because it gives the freedom to the viewer, and that interpretation is, I feel, an integral part of these fictional stories, these things that never actually happened. Would I create a full video of the greatest threats to creation? I think what he means to say here is Pariah? Pariah. Yeah. The retcon core, or would you provide a quick answer to who you think is the greatest threat? The greatest threat. Perpetua's up there, man. Maybe it was... I think the end of Lucifer... The end of the Lucifer one gets really close. Oh, then again... Oh, wait, no. There was that mad star from Sandman Overture. It nearly destroyed absolutely everything. It did destroy everything, and Dream had to recreate everything. That mad star might be a good... which, I guess the mad star only existed because of Dream. So I guess that makes Dream the biggest threat that's ever threatened DC. Dream's up there, I suppose. Or Lilith and her army at the end of Lucifer almost brought creation crumbling. The retcon core, I don't really. Oh wait, yeah, Pariah did destroy like everything though. Also, didn't she? Yeah, she also annihilated everything. And she's just she's basically just an avatar she was just an avatar of Mother Night that was unleashed on Earth by Constantine and Zatanna being absolute idiots. The retcon core, I don't think it really counts. I believe the writer for Milk Wars basically said it was dubiously canon or something along those lines. Most of that series is meant to be taken very tongue-in-cheek, and so I'm not gonna compare the retcon core to something like Mother Night's avatars. Have you ever had a chance to read any of the new X-Men? I like the direction they're going. A kind of isolationist and murky way of revolution. Considering what you're describing, considering I don't quite recognize what you're describing, I'm going to say I probably haven't been reading whatever you're referencing here. Sometimes I'm a little bit behind. I don't have time to read every single comic book, unfortunately. And so there are some stories that I'm just a little bit behind on. So I'll just be like, hey, did you hear about so-and-so broke down the Taco Bell? I don't know. It's some random stuff I've never heard about. I'm sorry. I apologize. I'll probably get around to it eventually if it helps. Does the whole spelling Mixes Pitalik come name backwards thing only apply to him, or could they have beaten Emperor Joker that way? No, it's a completely imposed rule. Mixes Pitalik is just playing a game with Superman when he does that. He doesn't have to go back to the he might have to go back to the fifth dimension because he's put some sort of a spell on himself or something like that, but for the most part, Mixes Pitalik does not have to obey those laws. They're arbitrary rules that he created to provide Superman a win condition for their battles of wits. Any theories about how Delight became Delirium? I do, actually. I have a very personal theory about how Delight became Delirium, and I don't want to talk about it. It might seem a little silly, but that's kind of my one pet theory that I've always told myself. I don't know if I want to share it. I expect to be on the internet for a long time, so maybe I'll change my mind someday, but the Delight Delirium theory, I think I've got it figured out. And I'd like to just keep it to myself. I think it's kind of a personal thing. Did you ever create a hero as a kid? I did not create a hero as a kid. I created mini heroes as a kid. I used to write comic books all the time, and they were all terrible, and they were drawn poorly because I couldn't draw, but I really wanted to. I wanted to know how to draw, and I still wish I knew how to draw. Is there anyone out there who can teach me how to draw? But yeah, I created a lot of heroes as a kid. I had this one guy, his name was Ted. I don't know why. I don't know why I didn't give him a more compelling name than Ted. And his power was like, he could sort of shoot these energy blasts, and depending on what sort of chemical concoction he drank, he could switch his powers out for other powers. And he could do like a dozen different things, and he had like a crew that he hung out with too, like a group of people who helped him fight crime. And of course I created Pie Man. Pie Man was literally a living pie that fought crime. That was a joke. I wasn't being serious. No, I mean, yes, that character exists, but I created him as a joke as a kid. It was like supposed to be a funny superhero, sort of like the Tick or something. I created a lot of heroes as a kid. Am I going to make a Q from Star Trek video? That maybe someday. That's something that I could see as being up my alley, but it's not like on the back burner or anything. Do other new gods have emanations like Darkseid, and do they know they aren't the main new god? Yes. All new gods have emanations. They're all abstracta, existing in Plato's Platonic realm, or the DC equivalent thereof. And they all emanate down into, like, these smaller universes. Do they know of their greater existence? Like, there's a more powerful one outside of the physical universe? I think so. I think that's been pretty much verified a few times when they've talked about the greater purpose of their being. Anyway. More questions here. Okay. Is Galactus' planet eating random, or is he seeking certain nutrients against Thor Blackwinter, or does he travel like a tornado, leaving a wake of destruction in a linear line? Galactus is not... He is a force of nature, but he also isn't. Like, he's sentient... He has sentient thought to him. He knows what he's doing. Galactus has commented in the past that he has the ability to sort of tell when a world is reaching the end of its lifespan. And by that I don't mean the world itself is about to naturally die. He can, like, preeminently tell when he looks at a planet that it's about to be invaded or destroyed, or some cataclysm's about to befall it. And he purposefully will go to planets that he knows are about to suffer a disaster anyway, and he'll just eat them there. Not all the time. Sometimes he needs food right now, and just any planet will do. But he has mentioned in the past that he makes a point to feed on planets that were already... They're meeting their expiration date anyway. He's not as bad as people paint him out to be. Galactus is a fairly considerate cosmic entity. Galactus takes shapes to what each civilization can comprehend. Then why do the Avengers think Galactus is a human, but the Fantastic Four think he was a cloud? Well, I don't know. Okay, actually, I do kind of know the answer to this. I have read that the Cloud Galactus who appeared in Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer was actually not a cloud. I've read that the entire... This just shows how bad the art direction for this film was, because so few people seem to have caught on to this fact, but the cloud was covering Galactus. you can see when he passes a planet headed toward Earth, you can actually see the shape of his helmet appearing on the planet as a shadow as he gets closer to Earth. And I've read before, I don't know if it was like an interview or notes or something, but the idea was supposed to be that the cloud was like a cosmic cloud of dust covering the real Galactus, and Galactus was supposed to make his full humanoid appearance in a later Silver Surfer solo film, but obviously Fantastic Four 2 Rise of the Silver Surfer just didn't do particularly well, and they didn't ever end up making that film, so we never got to see that happen, and a lot of people think that Galactus just showed up as a cloud in that movie. He didn't, actually, if I'm remembering it right. Maybe I'm remembering wrong, and everything I just said was absolute nonsense. Any interest in the Eternals? They're like Marvel's New Gods, really underrated in my opinion. Am I interested in the Eternals? Yes, I'm very interested in... I'm a lore maniac. Even if I've never seen your show before, I'm super into... I'm always... I eat that stuff up. But with Marvel and DC especially, yeah, I love the Eternals. But will I be making a video on them? Probably not. I don't have anything planned like that right now. If I come up with an idea, then sure, I'll make something come out. Maybe it'll like be in time for the Eternals movie, but there's not anything on the table right now, and frankly, I think I know a decent amount about the Eternals, and I can't think about what I would do exactly. Maybe I'll come up with something as we get closer to the film. Okay. Who do I think is the greatest detective in fiction? Batman, L, etc. I've always thought L Lowlight. And yes, that is how you pronounce his last name. It's French. I've always thought that he was probably the best detective I've seen. There are some people who get pretty close to him, and of course there are versions of, like, Sherlock Holmes. There are some versions of Sherlock Holmes that are basically psychic. I've always thought L was really the best at following those trails, though. And maybe that prompts a more serious analysis. Like I said, I'm working on an IQ sort of video that's going to study the intelligence of various characters. So maybe that does beg for a more serious look into who's the best detective. But off the top of my head, yeah, I've always been on Team L. I thought L was unnaturally good at what he did. And I think a lot of that lies behind, it was a cat and mouse game, right, between him and Light. And as the antagonist, as the cat in the game, he had to constantly stay on Light's tail, which means no matter what clever thing they wrote Light coming up with, L had to be right behind him. And I think this is actually mentioned in an interview at one point, that the writer said something like, L is the smartest character in Death Note because he has to be to move the plot forward, or something like that. And what that is it's essentially the writer saying, I kind of cheated a little bit. Like, he's basically psychic. He's figuring out things that no normal human... He's latching onto things no normal human would have latched onto. So there's something to be said for that. Okay, more questions. Phew, we have been here for a while. I wasn't expecting it to last this long. Alright, will I ever make videos on the Dark Multiverse, or the Batman Who Laughs? I don't think I'll ever make videos on the, I don't think I'll ever make videos on the storylines, no. But it's quite possible I'll talk about the concepts at some point, in whole or in part, or in combination with something else. They're a necessary combined part of the DC Megaverse now, so I feel like, you know, it has to be talked about eventually. Is Darkseid? Darkseid is. Is mayonnaise an instrument? Depends who you're asking. Can I make a Discord server? I probably will eventually make a Discord server. Be on the lookout for that. It'll happen sooner or later. Do I think Galactus exists to defy entropy? I mentioned in my video that he produces more energy than he consumes. Yeah, I think that that's one of Galactus's major roles, is he's supposed to sort of recreate the multiverse at the end of time. This is mentioned in the recent history of the Marvel Universe, and also in the discarded project, the last Galactus story. I do think that's one of the major points of his existence, is if we are incapable of averting heat death ourselves, then Galactus is supposed to sort of spark the Big Bang that results in the next multiverse. This is also recently referenced in the Immortal Hulk run, I believe, so we have very strong precedents for Galactus existing to defy entropy. Ugh. Okay, guys. We've been doing this for a while, and I'm not going to disappear just now. I'm not about to turn tail and leave, but we're going to have to start winding it down, and I'll stay on here for 10, 15 more minutes or something, but we probably should start wrapping it up. I hope you don't mind. I hope there are so many questions I haven't gotten to answer. I hope no one's too disappointed, but just from now on, I'm letting you know, it's gotta be first come, first serves when I read them. Even regarding super chats. If you super chat me, there's no guarantee I'm going to read it. I'm just trying to get through all of the people who haven't had a chance now. Alright, here goes. Hey Tyler, I wanted to thank you for indirectly inspiring me to... indirectly inspiring me to study engineering. I want to develop pioneer technologies, and one day, and your character videos on Batman inspired me. Thanks, I'm glad to know that I was able to inspire something. Engineers are incredibly important to the functioning of society. They do great things to change the world, man. Do you think Mxyzptlk could beat Darkseid? I love Mxyzptlk, so I want to know if you will ever do a video on him. Love the channel. Thank you. I love all of the compliments. Can Mxyzptlk beat Darkseid? He can certainly beat his emanations, without a doubt. As to if he can beat the true form of Darkseid, that's a complicated question, because Mxyzptlk has actually undergone something of a retcon recently, where... Oh, I don't know if I even have time to get into all of this. The fifth dimension, historically, has been treated as the fifth spatial dimension, like, you know, beyond time. But recently, Scott Snyder has sort of retconned it into just this massively higher realm, it's like a higher governing layer of reality. So I guess it would depend on if you're talking... It was a very silent retcon, too. But I think it would depend on if you were talking about pre-retcon or post-retcon, Mixie. Pre-retcon probably can't beat True Form Galactus. Post-retcon probably can. My last question today. How are you doing? Was your week good? Did you have a good breakfast? What did you eat? Thank you for all the great content. Thank you for all the questions, for all the support, all the love. I really don't deserve you guys. I'm doing well. My week has been hard. I've been trying to get a lot of stuff done, but it's been fun, and I've enjoyed it. My breakfast was also pretty good. I actually don't usually eat breakfast, so you just picked a really good day to ask that, I guess. I had I don't know if I want to mention it. Alright, look, don't think I'm weird. I had a chicken quesadilla. There's a reason behind it. I know that it's a weird time to have a chicken quesadilla, and it was fine. Could I make a video about... Oh, wait, hold on. What was it? Alright. In both Sandman and Lucifer, eldritch horrors exist beyond creation, have been mentioned several times. What are they really? The eldritch horrors beyond creation are really just things from other creations. Or, I guess they could theoretically be things that exist in the void as their regular home, but I don't know of any entity that meets that description. These are just very powerful beings that, like Lucifer, are capable of leaving their initial creation and have flown across the void and found our creation. Of course, there are also some whose creations were destroyed, and they later ended up in ours. They survived its destruction, which is unfathomable in its own way. Like the Silkman or the Jin and Muck. I actually haven't talked much about this, but I actually did do an interview a while ago with Mike Carey, and I haven't published it on any of my channels yet, but we talked about this for a little bit, about entities that exist outside of creation and how they survived their former realities and ended up in this one. They're very powerful beings from other creations made by other creators who managed to get over here somehow. That's really all you can say about them. Where would I place gods and abstracts as individual beings on the Kardashev scale? They'd be higher. I don't know. Like, the problem is the Kardashev scale only goes to 3, which is control over an entire galaxy. 4 is an extension that's never an unofficial extension that is just taking the next logical step, right? So, okay, you can control a galaxy at 3, so at 4 you can control a universe. And then we just take, again, the next logical step. At 5 you can control a multiverse of energy. So what happens at 6? At 6, do you control a collection of multiverses? At 6, do you, like, move another dimension up? I don't know. We would first need to define the terms of how we're going to continue to scale past 5, because scaling past 3 was already iffy. Scaling past 5 is just... we would need to have a consensus about how we're going to measure that. Okay. I've been told I need to wish Johnny a happy birthday. He's a big fan. His birthday's this Sunday. He'll be 76. So happy birthday, Johnny. If energy can't be created or destroyed, how does it exist? It's that's the question, isn't it? No. The laws of thermodynamics don't... I think you're taking them beyond their purpose when you're trying to figure out how it came into existence in the first place. They aren't here to tell you, you know, oh, did God create the universe, or did it funnel here from some other dimension or what? That's not their... They're meant to talk about when you're in a closed system, what is going to happen over time. And energy can't be created or destroyed as per the first law of thermodynamics, and it's going to basically spread out. I'm really dumbing down the laws here, but the second one is basically it's going to spread out infinitely, which leads to the inevitable conclusion that eventually the entire universe is going to die unless we can find a way to change the law, or if one of the laws are wrong, or I guess if God just decides to rapture us all up before then. Which, hey, I mean... I'm filled with primal joy when I get an Imaginary Access notification, like a rare gem on YouTube. I'm curious, are you into Lord of the Rings? Any video plans? No video plans for Lord of the Rings. I have read the entire series, though. I actually took a course on J.R.R. Tolkien where I got to visit England, and I got to see some of the places that he wrote his material and where he taught and stuff. It was fantastically interesting, man. Anyway, moving on. You make great videos. Lots of love from India. Thanks, India. You guys are great. I love my Indian bros. From Bombay to Bangladesh. Do I think Elle faked his death? No, I think Elle's probably dead. I think that the writers have been pretty clear that they don't do takebacks like that. Have I read Wildstorm comics? I've read Wildstorm, yeah. It's, like, I don't, it's not my favorite, but it's not bad. It's a fine series. Oh, there are some characters in there that I really think are interesting, too. Geesh, I wish Ginny Quantum was still around. I don't know... What was it? Yeah, during the reboot, they just replaced her with her predecessor again, didn't they? And I thought that was a missed opportunity. I really liked that character. I don't know, maybe I'm weird. Is there a reason everyone tries to recreate the super soldier serum? Cap's an inspiration, but in terms of physical stats to pump into someone with no side effects, surely there are better choices. I don't know, man. You just different scientist got a scientist, I suppose. People want to have an army of super soldiers, and yes, it's weird, isn't it? Because you'd think, like, in the Marvel Universe, there would be some better-known genetic enhancement, or just give everyone Iron Man suits, or cast a magic spell over people. And I guess people have tried those things too, so it's just different strokes for different folks. There are some people working on a super soldier serum, some people working on Iron Man suits, and some people casting spells to make everyone capable of crushing your universe. It just depends on what your field of expertise is as a local mad scientist. Will I make a Patreon? I will probably make a well, actually, I technically have a Patreon right now. I don't know if I was supposed to say that. It's sort of a secret. I don't like advertising it because I don't put videos out regularly, and I feel like I'd feel guilty taking everybody's money if I wasn't putting out videos regularly. But videos, I'm working on getting some regular videos out, and once regular videos come out for a while, and you guys can trust that I'm going to be putting them out regularly, I'll probably actually advertise my Patreon. If a god has unlimited power, then is he capable of escaping Azathoth's dream? This is sort of like the, if can God create a rock too heavy for him to lift? The question in and of itself is sort of loaded and nonsensical in a way. The god is a figment of Azathoth's imagination. You can't have unlimited power per the definition. Part of the problem with these questions about, like, oh, can God create a rock so heavy that he can't lift it, is it's like me asking, I don't know, you're asking something contradictory to its own nature. It's like me asking, can a circle have four corners? No. It doesn't mean it's, you know, it doesn't work that way. No, I'm sorry. It's closer to asking, if a circle has four corners, is it a square? That question doesn't make sense, because it's not a circle that has four corners if it has four corners. It's just a square. There's no circle with four corners. You know? Okay. Do I know about SCPs? I do know about SCPs. I've been sprinkling a lot of references to those throughout my videos. You probably caught some of them. I like to sort of weave this quiet lore underneath my series sometimes, which I don't know if anyone really pays enough attention to catch all of it. But it's my way of sort of enjoying SCPs instead of making a video on them, because I don't think that I have the appropriate amount of B footage that I would need to make an SCP video. You know, B footage being like pictures and video and stuff like that. It's not something that's super widely available. Let's see. Have I ever read Worm? The Worm web serial? No, I have not. Sorry. Well, that's not entirely true, because I've seen, like, parts of it, but I've never, like, sat down and tried to read the Worm web serial. I know what it is. Are you hyped for the Secret Crisis, and why the heck are you so smart? Of course I'm hyped for Secret Crisis. There wouldn't be. But two of my favorite words. And you flatter me. I think I'm smart, but you know, I don't stinking. I get way too much praise for it. I don't think I'm as smart as people think I am. I think I'm pretty smart, but I think that no one's as smart as people say I am. People think that I'm stinking Albert Einstein over here. Have I watched Doctor Who? I have. It's a great show. If I ever wanted to do a Doctor Who video, I think I'd need to lock myself inside of a closet for like 2 weeks just to get all the research out of the way. Holy cow! It's such a Massive series. It's so daunting. I'd be very worried about screwing it up. Hypothetically, what would happen if two omnipotent beings fought? If two omnipotent beings fought, then they would realize that they were actually the same being. It would be sort of like, it's another sort of nonsense question. Again, that's not meant to insult you. It's just, it's a question that the defined terms in it contradict the thing that you're asking. If two omnipotent gods thought, then they would realize that they were just one god having a thumb war with itself. Have I ever done an IQ test? I have done an IQ test. I had to do it for some form of therapy I got a while ago, and they were we're looking into some stuff, and I took an IQ test. So that was the first time I'd ever done it. It's not like I seek those things out. I'm not like part of Mensa or anything like that. Have I ever thought about doing a video on Persona? I have, but sort of like My Hero Academia, that's one of those things where I feel like I missed the peak. It's unfortunate. I really should have been making videos left and right at the time that these things were going on, and then I'd have really given you something to love there. But unfortunately, I think I missed the hype train for Persona and for My Hero Academia, and so we're just kind of left here with me like, these would make good videos, but I don't think anyone would watch them. Unfortunately. How do I think anime godlike characters would fare against someone on Darkside's level? Do I have any interest in the Fate series? It depends what you mean. Like, there are anime gods who are more powerful than Darkseid, and there are anime gods who are weaker than Darkseid. I will say that Darkseid's true form is definitely one of the more imposing fictional things. Like, I'm not saying he's like in the top 10 per, like, I'm not even close to having an encyclopedic knowledge of fiction. But most series out there, even series that deal with superheroes and supernatural things, most of them don't have things on the absurd level that Darkseid and DC's upper tiers get. That's just, they're insane. Galactus versus Beerus. Galactus would probably absolutely destroy Beerus, provided provided he was well fed. I guess Beerus could probably defeat Galactus if Galactus was hungry enough, because that hunger level, it does some stuff to Galactus. He can get down to a level where he has a tough time dealing with rabbles of earthbound superheroes. I'm not even into comics, and I love your videos. I'm sure we would all watch whatever you uploaded. Aw, thanks. You're super nice. Is New 52 Darkside an emanation? New 52 Darkside is... Darkside was revived by the Empty Hand after the events of Final Crisis. And the New 52 version that you see is the revived version that's sort of been resurrected from the grave, and in Multiversity it's explained that he's sort of gathering the remnants of his of the Godhead Superman destroyed to recreate his true form. Yeah, to recreate his true form. And I think that Grant Morrison's intention was to follow up on that with Multiversity 2, but for whatever reason that story was put on hold. And then later, in the Anatomy of a Metahuman guidebook, we got confirmation that Darkseid had a true form again. So I suppose that all that really happened was he eventually rebuilt himself, and now everything's just back to the way it was. So it goes, right? Everything always circles back around to how it had began when it comes to these comic book stories and these DC universes. All right. 2 more questions. I'm going to take 2 more questions, and then I'm afraid I'm going to have to leave because we've just been doing this for a while. Thank you guys so much for just being here. You've been great. We'll see what happens. Okay. The Living Tribunal versus Xeno. Okay, I'm not counting this as a question. The Living Tribunal would annihilate Xeno. With all due respect to anyone who loves Xeno, and I think the guy is cute and hilarious, he'd be destroyed by the Living Tribunal. Oh, come on. Can I get some questions that aren't specifically this guy versus that guy for the last two? Whoa, okay. Is Shazam having the power of Zeus, okay? And Zeus can one-shot Superman. Why isn't Shazam considered more powerful? Alright, look, again, this sort of, I don't know, this sort of isn't a verse battle question. There's sort of a, okay, so Zeus, when we're talking about the entity that exists in the abstracta realm of Olympus, sort of like Apocalypse in its abstract realm, when we're talking about that version of Zeus, the like full completed form, he's way more powerful than Superman. This is true. And even the Emanation, I believe, usually kicks Superman's butt. But Shazam channels portions of the power of the Emanation. Do I have that right? Or does he channel it from the... He channels portions of their power. He's not literally as powerful as Zeus and Solomon and freaking... I'm sorry. He's not actually as powerful as all of the gods put together. He has portions of their powers to represent everything that he does. And we know this because, like you pointed out, he doesn't just knock out Superman. Superman usually can hold his ground against him. Do I know about Lucifer being retconned into the Great Evil Beast? What are your thoughts about it? If someone is omnipresent, do they exist in dreams? The Great Evil Beast thing, I think it's... I know what you're referring to, and I actually got a chance to speak with the author of that particular series, and I get the impression that it's meant to be a little bit unclear exactly what the relationship is, but the author certainly indicated to me he does not think that Lucifer is God's equal. He's not like the Great Evil Beast. The big thing about him was he was like a threat to heaven. Actually, I think it's usually kind of misinterpreted that he was God's equal too, because the Great Evil Beast was supposed to be sort of the absence of God. Like, it goes into all the philosophy I talked about with Darkseid. Before Darkseid was turned into that thing, that's what the Great Evil Beast was during Alan Moore's run on the series. And you even see this at the end when the Presence, who by the way was a much less defined concept at the time, links hands with the Great Evil Beast, and they become this sort of yin-yang of both. It's the absence of God's life, of God's light, it's evil, and Lucifer has a hand in evil existing, but he's not the evil itself. I think that the scene was supposed to be more symbolic than it was supposed to be literal, especially after speaking with the writer. The writer did not... The writer indicated to me, he seemed to be very clear that he does not consider Lucifer God's equal and opposite. Alright, last question. Let's see, last question. What are your thoughts / opinions on the non-canonical Marvel The End, where Thanos merges with the heart of the universe / Infinity? As far as the story is concerned, it's like, is the story any good? Yeah, the story's fine. It's I think Jim Starlin does a great job with Thanos. He's a fantastic writer, but as to like its relation in the to the Marvel cosmos and the Marvel mythos and how the multiverse works, it's weird, isn't it? Because when you read that, you probably notice it's all kind of wonky. It doesn't quite meet up with how the multiverse works, and I'll be talking about that again decently soon. Whenever I actually get around to my video about The One Above All, you'll probably hear me talk about Thanos The End and how it ties into things like the Infinity finale and the Infinity ending, and how all these Starlin stories sort of fit into the Marvel canon itself. We'll eventually do a bit on that. I have a whole plan about doing some stuff on omnipotent entities in the near future. Or, well, near omnipotent entities. And omnipotent entities, both. It's just going to be about... People are always asking me about how high it can go, and I thought we could explore that at some point. We'll get there. Alright, but I do think that should be about it for the day. I appreciate everyone who came in here and asked questions, and I'm sorry that we didn't only talk about Darkseid and Galactus. I do think there was a lot of both of them, but obviously, you know, I feel like when people are sending me super chats, I do my best to catch every single one of them, because people are paying money to ask me something, you know, and I'm like, well, I don't want them to have wasted their dollar, so I really do. I try my best. I didn't get to all of them, and I do hope everyone enjoyed it. I had a good time today, and I hope all of you guys did too. I'll try to get a new video out to you as soon as possible, and I hope you'll all be around to enjoy it. So, I guess it's just time to say bye. See you later, guys!